Sports photography is one of my favorite types of photography. You never really know what's going to happen on the field or on that court. I almost lost the word there. But it's one of the best things to take photos of, and you might be struggling in terms of what gear you need to get started or even to continue taking photos in sports. So I'm here to help you today and show you the top 3 lenses that I think will help you in your sports photography, starting from very cheap to very expensive. So yeah, let's go. The first lens that we're going to be talking about is the Canon 50mm 1.8. It does not have to be the Canon version. It can be the Sony, the Nikon, doesn't matter, but most manufacturers are going to have this type of lens, a 50mm 1.8. You wouldn't think this is good for sports photography. It's usually known for portraiture, but this is actually really good and I've used it before. What's different about this than any traditional lens that you would hear about for sports photography is that it's a prime lens, meaning it does not zoom. So it only has one focal length, meaning you have to move physically back and forth yourself with the camera to get closer to your subject. Some people might not like the fact that you can't zoom in and out, but this is actually really good because if you can get close to your subject, it's really nice. Since it has that f1.8, it can get incredibly blurry in the background, giving you that professional look, as well as if you're indoors. I love using this for basketball because if you're indoors, having that 1.8 aperture means it lets more light in, meaning you don't have to bump up your ISO. So you'll have a cleaner and sharper looking image in a darker sports arena or area. Just to give you some examples of what the Canon 50mm 1.8 can do, or just any type of 50mm 1.8, here are some of the photos I've taken for my basketball team. Next up we have the 85mm 1.8. This is also on Canons, Nikons, Sonys. Doesn't matter what manufacturer you have, most likely you're going to have an 85mm 1.8. On Canon it is pretty cheap, it's about $425. I was mentioning earlier the 50mm 1.8, this is only 125 bucks, so very, very cheap. The 85mm is about 425, and these prices are mostly Canadian, but I'll link up some stuff for US in the description as well. But the 85mm is the same deal as this. You can't zoom in and out, but it has a 1.8 background. You can get other ones with 1.4, so you can get that blurry background type of look. Nice depth of field. You do have to move yourself because it is a prime lens, but with the 85, it has a bit more of a focal length than the 50mm, giving you some more reach. And for the third pick, this might be incredibly obvious, but is the 70 to 200 2.8. There's also the f4 version, and for Sony's, there's the 70 to 180 now, which I'll talk about in a minute here. This is a great lens if you're shooting outdoors, something like soccer or football where you can't get close to the action and you need something to zoom in. The 200mm is going to get you right up close to the players. Really, really good, as well as the 2.8 background is still going to give you enough background blur, as well as let in enough light that if you are indoors at a sporting event, that it's still going to give you enough light that you don't have to bump up your ISO too much and get that grainy shot. These 70 to 200s can get incredibly expensive, so I also recommend the f4 version. Only thing is you will have to bump up your ISO because it doesn't let in enough light, but this won't matter too much if you're shooting outdoors. The only difference is that it'll have less of a blurry background, but usually at that 200mm, you're going to have enough compression that the background is pretty much blurred out even at f4. The massive downside to these lenses, like I was saying before, is that they are incredibly, incredibly expensive. They get to be in the thousands of dollars range where you really don't want to go. The best way to find these for any cheaper way is don't cheap out and get the crappier versions or get a broken version, but get a used version. People who buy these lenses brand new usually take incredible care of them because they cost so much money. This does mean, however, that they keep their value, so even the used ones are still pretty expensive, but it's a significant amount off of the MSRP. For Sony users, I also recommend the 70 to 180 2.8. This just came out from Tamron not too long ago, but it is an incredibly sharp lens. You're only losing 20 millimeters of focal length, but that's not a massive, massive deal. And it costs half the price, or even less than half the price, of the Sony 70 to 200 2.8 G Master lens, which is insane. It costs about $1,800 in Canadian, and in US it's even cheaper. So yeah, I highly recommend this. It's incredible quality for the price, and you're not losing out on much. Some of the other lenses that I want to quickly mention are the Canon 55-250, the Sony 55-210, as well as other manufacturers. Like, you can find these type of lenses from Nikon or Pentax, or why are you using Pentax? But basically, you can find any of these kit or basic zoom lenses from any of these manufacturers, and I would not recommend them. I would say if you're trying to get into sports photography and you're taking photos outside, they're completely fine, they are usable. The thing to remember is that they have variable apertures, which means that it can go from f4.5 to, when you zoom in, all the way up to 6.3. That's at least on the Canon one. I'm not sure about the other manufacturers. But the problem with this is that there's not enough light coming into the lens. If you're outdoors, it's usually fine, but you're not gonna get that nice blurry background, and especially if you're indoors, they're not gonna work. You're gonna have to bump your ISO up massively, giving you a super grainy image. So I would just personally not recommend them. If you need something and you're just starting out, especially if you're outdoors, then sure, I would say you can get that for the beginning, but you'll want to move on pretty quickly after that. Just in my personal experience, I've used the Canon 55-250 before on a gig, and the images turned out okay, but they really weren't the sharpest images, and personally I didn't like it. The client didn't mind so much, but it was, in my personal opinion, not the sharpest images, and I just wouldn't recommend it. So those are some of the best lenses that you can get for sports photography, whether you're entering in and you want to spend a very little amount of money, or if you're progressing further and further and you're okay with spending a lot more money to get incredibly high quality images. So yeah, those are the lenses that I would recommend. Let me know what other kind of videos you want to hear from me, any other recommendation type of videos, reviews, tutorials, all that other stuff. Let me know in the comment section down below. Also, if you're not subscribed to the channel, which most of you aren't, make sure to subscribe for other photography and videography content, and make sure to give this video a thumbs up because it really helps push my videos on the YouTube algorithm, making me grow my channel, and I'd really, really appreciate that. Thank you guys so much for watching, and as always, peace guys. See ya.